Hello, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Women, Sex, God, Power, where we talk about the witchy, the mystical, the fantastical, the forbidden, and how to begin decolonizing your existence as a woman so that you can begin to reclaim back your power from so many of the forces that have inhibited it. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the origins of witchcraft and spell casting, because I'm frankly really fed up of there being a bad association with spell casting and witchcraft. And I'm just really tired of everything that is feminine and powerful and beautiful and meant to exist for our benefit as women, but also as men, being so highly demonized and vilified. I have written a script for this episode because there is so much to really get into, but I want to begin by saying that all spell work originates from working with the earth and working with the divine, and of course a lot of this knowledge is passed down through our ancestry, through spiritual wisdom traditions, but ultimately a lot of spell casting comes down to just being intuitive. You intuitively knowing how you want to work with the elements, work with the earth, what herbs you want to use, what type of spell you want to cast, and we're going to get into that a little bit later in the episode. Because the two primary types of spell casting that you can do is either to call something in or to move something out. So we have spells for obviously manifestation, calling something into our reality, and then we have spells for casting something out, protecting ourselves from negativity, from the evil eye, which is something in my lineage, my Egyptian lineage, we have so much knowledge about in terms of what protective prayer to use to give yourself that shielding. But ultimately, those are the two types of spells that we use, right? Calling something in or casting something out, and occasionally casting hexes and curses over those who refuse to respect our boundaries or who are causing us genuine harm. I don't particularly like to work with curses or hexes just because of the karmic imprint that I do believe it can create in one's life and that can carry over to the afterlife, to the next life. Again, that's something that I personally hold as a belief because of my own Egyptian lineage. But do whatever you gotta do to get through this life. I'm not judging. So when you are spell casting, you are consciously creating your reality by commanding something into existence or casting something out, which really honestly, it's kind of the same thing, because when we're clearing things out, we are simultaneously making space for something to come back in, whether it's a soul retrieval, a part of your power, or you're creating space for more abundance or the right people to find you. So either way, whether you are intentionally calling something in or removing something, you are consciously working with the powers that be, with the divine energies that surround you at all times in order to consciously craft your reality as you desire it to be. So whether you're spellcasting to have success with a particular project, making space to invite in more wealth, to attract a lover, to improve your health, to have a healing, you are basically commanding the universe to bend to your will and deliver this transformation to you. Unfortunately, spellcasting has been given a really bad rap because of patriarchy, surprise, surprise, and colonial influence. Before colonial influence, there wasn't so much association with spellcasting or voodoo or magical practice being something inherently negative. The reason why that perspective was developed was because the people who were often working with magic were very powerful women, priestesses, shamans, healers, women leaders who had a great deal of influence and power and shaped the community around them. And of course, that type of woman is going to be the most feared, because a woman who knows how to work with magic cannot be controlled by a man, cannot be controlled by anyone for that matter. But she is also a woman who has the power to control men and has the power to greatly influence people around her. This is why the word witch is associated with something that is devilish, immoral, corrupt, satanic, dangerous, but ultimately being a witch means to be a woman who has access to a formidable amount of power and knows how to use that power to wield and consciously create her reality. And of course, nothing scares men, the patriarchal powers that be, more than that, because women who truly recognize the power that is available to them can change the cultural paradigm, can completely transform society as we know it. And they did. And that is precisely why women who were witches, who were magical practitioners, have been so atrociously vilified. So for this reason, witches, shamans, mystics, priestesses, healers, any woman who had the power to influence, to heal, to transform, to change and influence someone to view the world through an expanded lens of consciousness rather than through the lens of religious doctrine, was demonized and has been represented throughout history for eons, for thousands of centuries, as the type of woman that men should avoid, should seek to control, the type of woman that other women should demonize as well and avoid at all costs. If we think of some of the myths and fairy tales that depict witches, the first thing that usually comes to mind is a woman who has been ostracized from community and has been outcasted from the village, who is having to fend for herself, who the townsfolk and the villagers fear because of all of those connotations and associations that we have with the word witch. So we're talking about a really, really deeply embedded imprint, fear association that has been carried down from centuries of fear-mongering and deliberately negative propaganda to ensure that women never resurrect the depth of power that they possess through magical practice and through adhering to women teachers who carry the essence of a witch, a priestess, a mystic, etc. So why is spellcasting still viewed with so much apprehension? Well, to begin with, religious suppression and power struggles, because many organized religions such as Christianity condemned spell work as heretical because it empowered individuals outside of the church. It encouraged them to source from their own inner wisdom, right? That was the whole purpose of spell work, encouraging women and men to claim back their autonomy, their power, to begin sourcing from within, developing their own individual connection with the divine powers that be, opposed to sourcing from man-made religions and man-made dogma. The Bible and other religious texts framed magic as either being divine and brought about by miracles, which could only be brought about by men, or it was framed as evil, sorcery, which was depicted as something that was brought about by only women. And this is where women, spiritual healers and practitioners and channelers and prophets were often depicted as evil and dangerous and accused of witchcraft to suppress their influence, which threatened the church. And, obviously, male leadership. And then we had the witch hunts and the fear of women with feminine power, which began to develop from the 15th century onwards into the 18th century, in which thousands of women were executed for practicing witchcraft during the European and American witch trials. Women with knowledge of herbalism, midwifery, healing, any woman that had the divine power to heal, was also viewed as a threat to patriarchal structures. And this is where the fear of powerful, independent women led to the demonization of witchcraft and spiritual practice. So in essence, any woman that was more intelligent, more powerful, had more wisdom, who had a greater capacity to channel wisdom from the universe and divine powers that be, was labeled as a threat, a danger to society, to the culture at the time, to the collective. You get the idea. And witches and witchcraft were also heavily associated with the devil and black magic, since the church propagated the idea that all non-Christian practices were related to devil worship. And then we also have Hollywood and media that reinforced this ideal, continually portraying witches as being evil, cursing others, or making pacts with the devil and dark forces. And this fear is also partially influenced by our own fear in the unknown and superstitions. People feared what they did not understand. And magic and working with magic was seen as unpredictable, volatile, dangerous, something that was not entirely within our control. And of course, again, this is dependent on the way that you use magic, the type of spell that you are casting, whether it is truly in alignment with divine forces that be and on behalf of your own well-being and the well-being of others, or whether you are casting from a place of power, hungriness, greed, the desire to have influence or domination over others in a way that works against their own free will. But this fear of magic being unpredictable and dangerous is what resulted in mass hysteria, bringing about events such as the Salem witch trials. And colonialism has played a huge role in the erosion of Indigenous spiritual practices, and has resulted largely in us having this perception of witchcraft being something that is dangerous or unsafe, something to avoid at all costs. Many African, Eastern, and Indigenous cultures practice forms of witchcraft such as hoodoo, voodoo, shamanism. These are all of the things that have been demonized in our society today, that have resulted in women and men being completely severed from spiritual practice to such a violent degree that we have lost connection with our own power as a result. We no longer know how to source our power from within through cultivating that connection to the elements, to nature, to spirit beings, to our ancestors. This is all wisdom that we have lost. And I would confidently say this is one of the primary root causes of so much mental illness, spiritual afflictions, fragmentation within our individual identity, but also in terms of how we relate to one another, the relationship we have with one another, the relationship that we have with the earth, because so much of those practices, those Indigenous wisdom practices, have been eradicated from society or labeled as primitive and barbaric as a result of colonial rule, when they were, in fact, the very thing that kept our spirit and our soul intact. If you think about some of the mandatory practices that hold Indigenous communities together, dance, prayer, affirmation, mantra, right? Spiritual purification. This is not something that Indigenous communities come together to practice during celebratory events such as birthdays or weddings or when a baby is born. This is something that is a mandatory everyday practice. It is interwoven into their existence. It is as important to them as eating, as sleeping, as everything else. Rituals for dance, rituals for money, rituals for healing, rituals that bless the community and ensure that the well-being of everyone within the community is intact. This is something that we have lost in Western culture. If we do experience dance rituals or magical practices, we often experience it as a one-time event that is organized, that we show up to, we pay a certain amount of money for. We do our practice within an often whitewashed community that has no understanding or connection to the original Indigenous teachings and principles. And then we go back to our isolated lives and we forget all about it. Reclaiming connection to practices such as witchcraft, spellcasting, purification rituals, knowing how to align your life with the moon cycles, when to cast a spell, where you are calling something in, when to cast a spell, where you are releasing something. These are forms of knowledge and wisdom that our ancestors were all connected to. This is what we have become so severed from within our society, and as a result, we now have to survive through being heavily medicated, so heavily numbed out in our everyday reality because we do not have ritual practices that we can turn to, that we can use in order to activate the power within us and understand how to work with these transformative powers that surround us at all times to exist in harmony with the earth, with the universal forces, with others, viewing life through the Indigenous perspective, not the colonized mentality that has acted like a poison that is a poison in our spirit. This is one of the reasons why spellcasting as a ritual is such an important practice for you to bring into your life. I really want you to begin to recognize that the entire state of reality as we know it is a violent form of propaganda against women awakening that feminine essence, which includes the witch, includes the mystic, the revolutionist, the creative innovator, the woman who is actively designing her own life path with intention, using all of the tools that she can to work and weave that reality into being, completely liberated from the masculine colonial patriarchal structures that act as a feminine harvesting project. This entire planet is a feminine harvesting energy project. It is designed to entrap and ensnare feminine energy and use it for its own gain. Whether that is through the demonization of witchcraft and spellcasting and magical practice, through religious doctrine, through the propaganda that is marriage, through the promotion of femininity and feminine ideals such as women are here to nurture and provide and give in abundance. All of it is a feminine energy harvesting project. That's all it is. Designed to traumatize women, to keep them from knowing the depth of abundance and power that they have and how they can use that inner power to manifest reality as they would desire it to be. Let's talk about the most commonly used spells. So we have spells that were used for self-protection, for manifestation of personal dreams, for the well-being of one's community. And these are really the most common spells that have been used. So protection spells such as warding off negative energy, the evil eye, bad spirits, any projections that are sent your way, creating protective charms or sigils, so casting a circle for spiritual safety. So that's protective spells. And love and attraction spells were also very, very common. Or deepening one's own sense of self-love and confidence-boosting rituals, or rekindling passion in relationships. Wealth and prosperity spells, so manifesting abundance, enhancing career success, or removing money blocks. Healing spells, so bringing about powerful emotional healing, purging, spiritual purification, releasing trauma, past wounding, karmic contracts, ancestral wounding, energy clearing, chakra balancing, etc. Banishing and clearing spells, so removing the negative energy of others. We're talking about cord cutting here, or clearing your space using smoke, salt, or herbs. Those are some of the most common clearing spells, but we're looking at removing the imprints of what other people have projected onto you, the negative impact that someone has had on you, clearing that out of your energy field permanently. And you could also do things like psychic and intuitive spells, so enhancing clairvoyance, opening your third eye. Dreamwork spells could also include things like removing entities during your dreams, during astral projection, or calling back parts of your soul whilst you are dreaming. Dream work is incredibly powerful. And also we have shadow work and transformational spells. So facing and overcoming really, really deep inner wounds and fears that may have been holding you back for multiple lifetimes. Spell work is not merely about intention setting and candle burning. Obviously, what you are evoking when you cast a spell is keeping the energy moving and flowing in your life around a particular theme. So maybe around your healing, maybe around money, maybe in your relationship, ensuring that that particular area that you are casting a spell for remains open, fluid, flexible. And this is something that all Indigenous wisdom teachings understood really, really well, that if you want to cultivate success in any area of your life, then you need to keep the flow of energy, the current of energy moving in that particular area. The opposite of success is stagnation. The opposite of health and healing is disease. And all of this comes down to stagnation. So spellcasting is not just about lighting a candle and having an intention and then waiting for the thing to manifest. It's also about maintaining your relationship with it through continually directing your focus, your attention, your energy towards that particular area of your life. So one of the ways that you can do this to work with the elements is if, for example, you want to bring more money into your life, keep a little water feature in your bedroom, in the place that you spend the most time in, and keep that running throughout the day. Or if you are seeking to purify something, to release something, to let something go, then you might want to work with fire. So keeping a candle lit throughout the day, writing your intention into the candle, and maybe visualizing several times a day and bringing a lot of intention through your visualization, seeing that you are letting that attachment to that person or to that thing or to that block, you're letting it go, you're seeing it burn, you're seeing it transform into abundance, into wisdom, into power. And the reason that we light a candle when we're spell casting is because candles represent transformation, movement, and intention. Fire is the energy of transformation, water as well, but fire is one of the most powerful elements. It is the most powerful element to work with when you want to not just purify something from your life, but you want to change its form. So you want to transform disempowerment into power. You want to transform scarcity and lack into abundance. You want to transform stagnation into flow. Fire is obviously one of the 4 classical elements, and fire represents passion, action, and change. So it transforms energy, wax into liquid, smoke into air, symbolizing the shift from intention to reality. And fire is used for both purification and manifestation for this reason. Releasing all that is no longer needed and inviting in your desires. So let's talk about the moon phases and spell casting. I'm going to go through my notes on this one. So lighting a candle helps create a sacred moment of focus, helping direct energy towards intention. The flame acts as a beacon, amplifying your desires. To enhance your intention, you can do the following. Spells for manifesting your power, your clarity, and amplification, such as charging, amplifying energy, manifesting, and abundance spells. So these are spells that you should do during the full moon, especially during a lunar eclipse, since energies are at their peak and lunar energy is heightened whenever a lunar eclipse occurs. This is when the moon's light is blocked by the Earth's shadow, creating a temporary but powerful shift in energy. This eclipse energy acts like a magnifier and amplifier, magnifying your intentions and making your spell work a lot more potent. Habits or cutting off toxic relationships, any energy that was accumulated as a result of a toxic relationship. These are all spells that you want to do during a waning moon. So again, those are spells for release and protection. Spells for manifestation and growth, such as attracting money, success, or opportunities, strengthening relationships, increasing personal power and confidence, expanding your creativity and artistic expression. These are all spells to do during a waxing moon. And lastly, we have spells for setting new goals and intentions. So this includes starting new projects, opening up a new chapter of your life, manifesting desires from a clean slate, spiritual awakenings, and self-discovery. These are all spells to be done during a new moon. This is all about new beginnings, starting anew, starting over, starting fresh. And also, if you are bleeding during a new moon, it means that you're coming into a new chapter in your life. This signifies that you are meant to be focusing more on beginnings, what you are now initiating and creating in your life, new habits that you may want to cultivate. This is going to look different if you're bleeding on a half moon. This is about beginning to really take initiation, moving outwards into the world, focusing more on what you are wanting to manifest and bring into being within the next few months, okay? So if you're bleeding on a half moon, this means that you are preparing to manifest something big. If you're bleeding on a full moon, this means you're in a phase in your life where you are meant to be moving your expression outwards. So you're meant to be quite active in the world, active with promoting yourself, being visible, being seen, building community, building relationships with others, going on adventures. So aligning your manifestation practice, your spell casting with the moon cycle that you are bleeding on is really, really important. Your bleed is always showing you the phase that you are in. So look at the type of spell casting that you are meant to be doing based on the moon cycle that you are bleeding on, because that is going to make your spell all the more potent. I wanted this episode to be a lot longer, but at the moment I'm trying to keep them a little bit more concise, because otherwise I go on and on and on, and I think 30 minutes to 40 minutes is long enough, and that's also when my energy begins to drop off. So I just need to begin being a little bit more careful with how much information I'm also giving you, because I don't want to overwhelm you. But before I end this episode, I just want to mention that I have just launched a free masterclass for creatives, artists, aspiring entrepreneurs, women who are interested in monetizing their creativity, who are looking to build a business using their creative gifts and their talents and their spiritual abilities. I am giving you a step-by-step formula on how to begin monetizing your creative work. So please go make use of this free masterclass, because it's not going to be free forever. You can go sign up to it for free via the show notes. Click on the link, watch it now, because this masterclass is only a very small part of a work that I'm offering women this year. This episode on spellcasting is only a teeny tiny taste of a collection of teachings that I am going to be releasing at the end of June, on June the 28th, as part of my new feminine immersion, the Aquarian Woman's Business Blueprint. I have also linked information on this immersion via the show notes, so please check that out. Everything that I'm discussing on the podcast this year is specifically for women artists, creatives, highly sensitives who want to begin learning how to monetize their creative gifts, building a business from the ground up using a collection of practical tools and also spiritual feminine wisdom teachings, decolonization practices, which most importantly also include how to use both spellcasting and your astrology chart in order to begin generating wealth in alignment with your creative and astrological blueprint. So there is so much that I'm going to be offering you this year. That's a lot of information. So what I would suggest is that you begin by signing up to the free masterclass via my show notes. Watch it all the way until the end, because I'm offering you a free gift that you'll be able to get when you watch the full masterclass all the way through. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I'm just getting back into my podcast flow after 7 months of going through a very intense spiritual awakening. So I apologize if this episode wasn't as eloquently and smoothly delivered as I would like it to have been. Thank you for listening though, and thank you for watching, and please do leave your comments. I love hearing from you. I will always respond to you. Please do also share this episode with anyone who may find it useful, and also rate the podcast if you are enjoying these episodes. Lots of love, and see you on the next one.